Billy, is it possible to prove God exists?
No.
Can you make progress?
You can make arguments. So, I mean, there are lots of philosophical arguments. Most theologians today aren't really interested in those arguments. They say, for whatever reasons, we take it for granted that God exists. Personal experience, conviction, whatever. And then the question is, well, if God exists, and this is the universe, and these are the scriptures, how do we make it all? How do we understand it all? So, and this is the difference between what was previously called natural theology and a theology of nature. So we're not trying to identify divine action in any particular causal sequence or something like that to prove God exists. I don't think that works.
Many people try to do that.
And historically, it's been a case that there have been, different, that of which nothing greater can be thought, or various different arguments. There's been a revival recently in what's called apophatic theology or negative theology. The idea that if God is infinite, then nothing that humans can say in human language is adequate to describing God. So the only affirmative things you could say about the attributes of God is what God is not. So to call God a father, for instance, is purely metaphoric speech. And God is not literally a father. If a God were a father, it wouldn't be God. That which nothing greater can be thought, this idea of the negative space. If you eliminate all attributes, what you're left with is God.
That doesn't sound like it's a lot of substance.
It's not very anthropomorphic. It's not very, it's not very personal. But there's I think, some value in that.
How about the idea of understanding proof when you're dealing with something, by definition, not physical, in a different sense? Instead of saying proving the inference to a best explanation, or weighing evidence and giving probabilities, is there anything there that progress can be made?
Sure, and I always like to say, when you scratch a physicist, you discover a Neoplatonist. And certainly Einstein was that kind of a physicist. He used the word God. He thought of God, but his sense of God was more a God of mathematics, a kind of a transcendent structure behind the universe. And I'm very sympathetic with that viewpoint. I think somehow there's this mystery of mathematics, and why does it work, at least in certain circumstances, in describing the universe. But that's not that kind of God, the God that you might derive infer from science, intimations of transcendence, I think we get all the time from science, is not going to be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, or Allah and Muhammad as his prophet. So it's a very different view of God. It doesn't rule out the idea of a personal God, but it seems more like a transcendent force, very impersonal.
But can you make progress even to that? Because
Sure.
We agreed that you can't even prove that kind of force or God, call it what you will, but can you make inferences to that?
Yeah, I think, and I'd say the inferences today are mounting. I think some kind of theism is a more elegant explanation for the universe than, say, multiverse theory.
Why do you say that?
Multiverse theory violates Occam's razor. It multiplies complexity which is unobservable to empirical science. So to solve a particular problem, Paul Davies has a nice line about this. Whether you postulate theism or multiverse theory, you're forced to postulate an infinite something unseen to explain a finite something which is seen. And in that sense, both of these are sort of equally valid solutions.
But the two would not be mutually exclusive. You could have theism and multiverse at the same time.
In which case, we have to expand our understanding of God's creativity by an order of magnitude. Yes, very much so.